If you've ever acquired an Lpvo for your go-to-war rifle because it was the best of both worlds, but after actually using it, you realize that it is literally the worst potential option available, then go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, guys. Welcome back to the Trench Grenade channel. I am your host, The Average. The Lpvo is dead, and we did in fact kill it. Video enjoyer that your mom says that we have at home. Thanks for watching. Guys, the purpose of today's video is with the help of a little bit of clickbait, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about fighting with your rifle prior to a without rule of law, doomsday, or civil war scenario. We will be covering everything from timers and switches, how to shut off the human body with a single round, circulatory. We'll be covering wind holes, MOA math. You will need a calculator, pen, paper, and a good attitude with a little bit of whatever you're drinking, and it will be a good time. We have a lot to cover here today. I do want to note that my opinion on certain things has changed, such as backup iron sights, barrel selection, Lpvos. So this will be a longer format video to give you guys all of the information that I can give you in a one-stop shop to help you, a family member, or a buddy learn how to actually use that rifle that they own. Now, couple caveats and things to note. I do not represent the United States Army or the Department of War in any way. And if you want to support this channel, all that I ask that you do for this video is hit the like button, leave your combat llama emoji down below, and share this video with a buddy that has one too many budget builds, one too many Lpvos, maybe too many 20-inch retro rifles, and this video will help them actually learn with both their data book, their calculator, and everything regarding circulatory timers and switches, how to actually use that rifle that they don't know how to use. So grab a seat, grab all the things, and let's just get right into the content. Understanding the rifle, velocity and barrel twist. A lot of guys do understand this and a lot of guys don't. Nothing I cover today will be to insult your intelligence. If your rifle has a 14.5-inch barrel with a barrel twist rate of right hand 1 in 7, that means in 14.5 inches, that projectile will rotate twice. So the 1:7 ratio is simply in 7 inches, it will stabilize or have a full rotation of one time. Why is that important? Well, a lot of you guys have too long of a barrel. We'll get into that later. And a lot of you guys have a little bit too short of a barrel. There is a sweet spot, and it is going to be dealt with your rifling in your barrel and with the velocity. So understand that the twist rate, if I have a right hand 1 in 7 twist with a 14.5-inch barrel, that projectile will rotate twice, thus stabilizing it and giving it a longer duration to burn that powder, giving me more velocity. That is the effectiveness, where the terminal effectiveness of your rifle comes from. You just got to get that first and foremost out front. Optic selection. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, but it will be for a reason. A lot of you guys watching this will have a 16-inch gun with an Lpvo. That is stupid. For your application of use, survival, without rule of law, doomsday, civil war, not that we're advocating for it, but I am going to prepare my audience for the inevitability of a worst case scenario. If you're using a carbine with an Lpvo, you are misled and misguided. Some things. The Lpvos are heavy. They're not durable. Okay. They suck at 1 power. They suck at 6 power. If you have to spend more money to get a lower level of entry, so you have to spend more money to get an acceptable level of durability and reliability, and it is still too heavy for what you're needing it for. What I will recommend is a number of things here in a second, but generally speaking, most of you need, and drum roll, need what is often referred to in the media ineffectively as an assault rifle. You need a slightly shorter barrel with a red dot sight, because the vast majority of the engagements that you're going to get in are going to be at handgun ranges with a rifle. Trust me, we're going to cover it more in a little bit, but having a Lpvo that gives you capability, yes, out to 400, 500, 600 meters, you can do that same thing with a red dot magnifier or a rifle combat optic, also commonly referred to as an ACOG, okay? So an Lpvo on a 5.56 gun is stupid. All right, and I'm going to explain why more and more throughout the video. I have several videos on Lpvo specifically, but understand that the eye box sucks for an Lpvo. They're too bulky. They're too heavy. They don't do 1 power good. They don't do 6 power good. They have a higher cost of entry, and you're going to be better suited with all the optics that I will actually recommend. The optics that I do recommend to you, and this isn't telling you what to do, this is just educating you on my experiences and where I come from, and I am in a shooting course right now, and it has helped change my opinion on a couple things. But what I recommend for optics at the time of filming this video in this order is as follows: an Aimpoint Comp M4 with an EOTech magnifier behind it, or an EOTech EXPS 3-1 with an EOTech magnifier, 3x magnifier behind it, or a rifle combat optic with a Trijicon RMR on top. That is also known as an ACOG TA31 with a chevron reticle. I will show you more on that reticle here in a little bit. Here's an example right here. I will show you a little bit more on that specific optic regarding wind holds in a little bit. But what you need to know for optic selection is that most of you guys, or maybe not my audience, but a lot of guys you see out on the range with a 5.56, 11.5 with an Lpvo on it, they're trying to be like the sniper fantasy. They think they need 6x magnification when really they only need 3 to 4x magnification to be able to effectively engage out to 740 meters if they know their holds and they have a dope book or a data book and they have actually got data off the gun that they're shooting. And we'll go into more of the data book here in a second of how to actually use it, so that way you guys can apply it back home. But just understand that a 4-power optic will literally get you impacts, second time impacts on the second round at 740 meters if you have a proper data book, okay? So for all the guys that are like, well, I need magnification. Yeah, 3x magnifier or 4x rifle combat optic ACOG will get you in the neighborhood of 740. And as most of you guys know, 600 meter area is a squad size or group of soldiers for the 2 to 4 MOA capabilities of the gun that we are talking about here today, the AR-15 rack grade. Moving on from there, and I'm sure you guys are all hot and bothered over that. I do not care. Optic mounting. Let's talk about optic mounting. First thing I want to talk about is magnified optics. If you improperly mount a rifle combat optic, which is what I'm going to recommend to my audience, if you're going to use anything that is a permanently fixed magnified optic, I will recommend an ACOG, which is a rifle combat optic. Your eye box or eye relief should be exactly 1.5 inches from that rifle combat optic or ACOG, right? So when you measure from your firing eye to the back of that optic, you should look through and see no scope shadow. Scope shadow is simply black on the high, low, left, or right for the vertical or horizontal. That will cause rounds to string off target in the direction that it is shifted. So when you're mounting your rifle combat optic or ACOG, you need to ensure that you have no scope shadow and that the optic is mounted, for most shooters, as far back on that upper receiver as possible. We're going to get into red dots here in a second. Cheers. And if you're upset because I made fun of your Lpvo, just let me know why down below. So for the RCO, we covered 1.5 inches. It needs to be mounted as far to the rear for most shooters on the upper receiver as possible. So if you have a backup iron sight, typically what you have to do is remove that backup iron sight and move it to the front of the rifle combat optic to get a proper eye box or eye relief to alleviate scope shadow. Now, for red dots or for the Aimpoint or for the EXPS 3-1, you need to mount it as far forward on the upper receiver as possible, but not to impact the handguard in any way. So it should not be touching your handguards in any way, but it needs to be as far forward on the upper receiver as possible to be able to mount a magnifier behind it to give you better field of vision and situational awareness, and for you to be able to utilize your night vision with a heads-up capability behind that one-time dot or one-time power dot or EOTech reticle. Does that make sense? So as far forward on the upper receiver as possible. Again, the the optics I recommend are Aimpoint Comp M4. Number 2 would be EOTech EXPS 3-1. Number 3 would be the rifle combat optic with the Trijicon RMR on top, in that exact order. And I do recommend a quick detach mount regardless of which choice you choose. Moving on to witness marks. For your EOTech, you will not need it because you'll have a quick detach mount, and for your Aimpoint, you will not need it. But for your rifle combat optic ACOG, right, those words are interchangeable, you will need to utilize what is called witness marks. Simply take a paint pen, this is just a regular pen, and mark, once you have it hand tight plus a half turn with a Gerber, you will mark it thus indicating if it turns, you will know that your optic has loosened on the rail. You should do that with your PEC 15, you should do that with your RCO, and you should do that with any sort of aiming device that will be on your gun that does not have a quick detach mount. Also, you should mark with your zeros on your EOTech. Once you are zeroed, we're going to get into zeroing here in a little bit, but once you are zeroed, you should also use a witness mark to know if your zero has shifted. Buoys. Let's talk about buoys. So in the past, I have talked about not needing a backup iron sight sighting system. I have changed my mind. The reason being is I see things fail a lot, and in the schoolhouse that I'm shooting, you will always zero your backup iron sight first with a total of 30 rounds. That'll be 15 rounds to group and 15 rounds to zero. So you'll shoot 3 5-round groups, totaling 15 to get a good shot groups. 4 out of 5 rounds is considered grouped, and then you will shoot another 15 rounds with actually making the adjustment, and you will zero your backup iron sights first. I prefer the MBUS 3s. They're lightweight, they're polymer, they're an emergency system. At work, we use the Knights Armament, doesn't matter. The point is, have a set of zeroed backup iron sights that are flip up, accessible, and that will be there when you need it. 30 rounds is all you need to allocate for the zeroing of your backup iron sight sighting system. Have them zeroed and present. Minute of angle. Okay, most of your guns are going to be 2 to 4 MOA capable. What that equates to is a 19-inch wide soldier and a 30-inch tall soldier, keeping in mind for cover or concealment, assuming you can only see 30 inches of them in height, 19 inches of them in width. With a 2 to 4 MOA gun, that is going to give us effective 1-round hits out to 500 meters and effective 2-round hits out to 600 meters. Or also explained 500-meter point target, 600-meter area target. Excuse me. Why is this important? Well, understanding that an average military age male is 19 inches wide, 40 inches tall, but taking out the head and assuming they're in cover, because we never want to factor in the head box, because we want to factor in the center of visible mass, right? Here's a good example. So you see this guy right here. The center of visible mass is just going to be his actual body. Taking out the head, that will be 19 by 30 inches, right? 40 if you're training a basic trainee, which we are not. We're training prepared Minutemen who understand what I'm talking about. Keeping in mind with the capabilities of the rat grade AR-15 or M4 of 2 to 4 MOA, that will give you your effectiveness at farther distances, and that will help you understand your holds. Getting into that, MOA is 1/60th of a degree, or an angular unit of measurement. That's all you need to know. It is the way that you talk to your rifle. The rifle does not speak English. The rifle does not speak any language other than minute of angle. Zeroing. Let's talk about zeroing. For zeroing, you can do it one of 3 ways, but I'll also explain the 4th way as well. The distances I recommend that you zero at for 99.9% of people watching will be either a 25-meter zero, zeroing 1.5 MOA low, thus simulating a 36-meter zero, and confirming at 300. Option number 2 would be to zero at 36 meters and confirm at 300. And option number 3 would be to zero at 50 meters and confirm at 200 meters. Now, the differences here lie. If you're active duty and you only have a 25-meter range, you would use the 25-meter zero, point of aim being dead center, point of impact should be 1.5 MOA low from center of visible mass of your zero target. Option number 2, in my opinion, is the most preferred method for people watching this video. That will be a 36-meter zero, point of aim, point of impact, both dead center, and with an application of hold, center of visible mass at 300 meters. That will give you a perfect battle sight zero from 0 meters out to 300 meters, utilizing it out to 700 with a proper bullet drop compensator or magnifier. We'll get into that here in a little bit. That is the preferred method of zeroing, is 36 meters. The other method of zeroing would be 0 at 50 meters with an application out to 200. This is going to be your urban or CQB 0. You aim dead center from 0 to 200 and you're doing pretty good. So that is going to be your urban or CQB 0. Now, the way you're actually going to zero your rifle will be 15 rounds, 3 5-round shot groups, with 4 out of 5 of those rounds being grouped in a 6 centimeter threshold or 4 centimeter objective. All that means is if I shoot my 5 rounds, bang, I shoot my 5, I need 4 of them grouped in a 6 centimeter, and 1 flyer can be wherever, but a minimum of 4 of them need to be grouped within that 4 centimeter objective or 6 centimeter threshold. Now, I'm going to shoot another 2 groups. At least 8 out of 10 of those rounds consecutively, 8 out of 10 rounds consecutively within that 6 centimeter threshold need to be grouped. Once those are grouped, I can make my first adjustment to the center of my point of impact using minute of angle math. Now get your pen and paper out. For your EOTech, it is 0.5 MOA adjustments. I say again, for your EOTech, it is 0.5 MOA adjustments. For your aim point, Comp M4, it is 0.5 MOA adjustments, both vertically and horizontal, or windage and elevation, I should say. For your internal, this is going to be almost none of you, for your internal adjustments for your RCO or Rifle Combat Optic, it will be 0.33 MOA. But for the vast majority of you, the RCO/ACOG that you own will be an external ACOG. That will give you an adjustment of 0.5 minute of angle per click. So if it is a coin slot, you know it's internal. If it's just a regular turn, that is an external. Make sure you know which type of RCO or ACOG you are using. Your front sight post on your M4 rifle is 1.75 MOA adjustments and elevation, and your rear sight or backup iron sight is 0.75 MOA adjustments. You need to understand your adjustments for what sighting system that you're using. Some of you might have to back up and listen to what I just said again, and that's okay. For your PEC 15 and for your D-Ball A3, generally speaking, is going to be 0.75 MOA adjustment volume or values, okay? That goes over zeroing. Let's talk about laser zeroing. For your IR laser, you want to, and everything I'm covering today is in TC 3-22.9 or TC 3-20.40 or TC 3-23.35, okay? Everything I'm covering today, you can reference and go look up, and you will know that I'm not lying to you. And having used all this for the past month on the range, I can tell you it's all effective. For your laser, you want to zero 6 centimeters or up 6 over 6 for a 300 meter zero, but that is stupid. The way you want to actually do it is zero it at 25, point of aim, point of impact, okay? So turn on your either Viz laser or IR laser and zero at 25 meters, dead center, point of aim, point of impact. Then go out to 100 meters and zero at a 100 meter point of aim, point of impact for your PEC 15. This is going to give you an effective point of aim, point of impact zero from 50 meters, 100 meters to 150 meters. That is about as far as you can effectively engage anyway with a shitty mono tube, okay? So I say again, for your PEC 15, zero at 25 meters, go out to 100 meters and make adjustments and make sure you are on a piece of glint tape, 2x2 glint tape at 100 meters. That will give you a battle sight zero for your PEC 15 or D-Ball A3 for effectively fighting at night. That will be able to put the laser on 50, aim dead center, it hits. Put the laser on 100, aim dead center, it hits, and 150, it hits, giving you a converging zero. It would take me another 30 minutes to cover all this. Just trust me, it will work. I just did it myself, and I've been fighting 50% of my life shooting at night the past 5 weeks. Trust me, it will work. Next thing we're going to get into, holds. Okay, so for your 36 meter zero, which is what we're going to focus on, either 25 or 36, they're interchangeable, but 36 is preferred. That is what we're going to focus on for the duration of this video. Holds. You need to understand the holds for the caliber, or for the actual bullet that you're using, the projectile, for your barrel length, and for your zero. For me, and for M855 Alpha 1 out of a 14.5-inch barrel, it will be as follows. You should write this down. Okay? You will be at 300 meters. We'll start close. At 100 meters, I will aim a quarter form low. Okay, so at 100 meters, if I want to shoot somebody in Minecraft, I'm going to aim a quarter form low, also known as the gut or belt buckle. That will give a point of aim or a point of impact in the heart if I'm aiming a quarter low. For 200 meters, I want to also aim a quarter low, a quarter form low. This will also give me a point of aim at the gut and an impact in the heart. At 300 meters, I'm going to aim what's called center of visible mass, or point of aim, point of impact is the same. Aim at the heart, you hit the heart. We'll go over timers and switches here in a little bit. At 400 meters, if I was aiming here at 300 meters, at 400 meters, I'm going to aim at the head with the desired impact will be at the heart, right? Or center of visible mass. So at 400 meters, I aim at the head and hit the heart. At 500 meters, I aim at the hat and hit the heart. This is for a EOTech or red dot. For your rifle combat optic or your ACOG, you will use your actual bullet drop compensator. I did draw it out here on another sheet of paper for you guys to see. Give me 1 second. Boom, super high speed. Okay, so when you zero your RCO or ACOG, you're going to zero using the top of the post. Okay, so you see right there at the top of the post, this will be your point of aim for your 300 meter zero, or 25/36 meter zero will be the top of the post. So if I have a 100 meter target, I'll just use the top of this chevron right here. If I have a 200 meter target, I'll use the notch of the chevron. If I have a 300 meter target, I'll use the top of the post. If I have a 400 meter target, I'll use the 4. If I have a 500 meter target, I'll use the 5. 6, I'll use the 6. 7, 7, and bottom will be 8. That is how you will effectively utilize your bullet drop compensator on your rifle combat optic, also known as an RCO. That is the difference between a aim point and a bullet drop compensator in your rifle combat optic. So for 100 meters, aim a quarter form low to hit the heart with your aim point. For 200 meters, aim a quarter form low to hit the heart. For 300 meters, aim dead center of visible mass to hit the heart. For 400 meters, aim at the head to hit the heart. At 500 meters, aim at the hat to hit the heart. That is for your aim point, okay? Just to clarify and make sure everyone understands. Because if you don't understand holds, you're not gonna hit anything, right? It's not like Call of Duty where you aim at the head and hit the head. That's not how this works. Okay, next thing I want to cover is going to be ballistics. For ballistics, there is 3 types of ballistics: internal, external, and terminal, okay? Keeping in mind, we're going to talk about barrel length and all those things and projectile selection, but you have to understand ballistics to understand the rest of the class. Internal is everything that happens to the projectile inside the weapon. External is everything that affects the projectile on the way to its intended target, such as wind, atmospheric conditions, drag, you name it, okay? Weather, the biggest thing being wind that will impact the projectile on its path to the target, and the second, or the constant, being gravity. These are things that will impact the external ballistics of your 5.56 projectile. Terminal ballistics is everything that happens to that bullet once it impacts anything, okay? So if it impacts a tree on the way, it has begun its terminal ballistics portion, okay? So once it makes impact with anything. But that is the study of the science of everything that happens to that projectile in your intended target as well, such as yaw and all of those things, right? Hydrostatic shock, temporary and permanent wound cavities, and all of those things, which we will cover here today as well, okay? So that is ballistics. You also need to understand what's called max ord. Max ord, and you bear with me here, max ord is typically 2/3 on the way to the target, okay? That roughly right here. It is the highest point the bullet will travel on the way to its intended target. So if you've ever heard of spotting trace, when you're spotting trace, right, you'll notice that when you're sitting right behind, you have to be at the same elevation. So if I'm spotting trace through a spotting scope for somebody, I have to be directly behind them in line with the bore, and I can spot trace for them. The highest point, typically 2/3 on the way to the target, is your max ord. That is ballistics in a nutshell. Also understand that your point of aim or line of bore or line of sight and line of bore are different. So your line of bore is going to be elevated while your point of aim is center. All that you need to know is the bullet is going to take the path of a football or a water hose when you move it up to try to spray your dog in the backyard. That is the path that the bullet will take, right? It's not like when you went to basic and your drill sergeant told you it was a rainbow. That's not true. The barrel is slightly elevated, not to the naked eye to such an extent that you can see it, but the line of sight is dead on and the line of bore is slightly elevated, thus giving it the path of that thrown football. That is why we have holds, or that is why we have to use our bullet drop compensator. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button, share with a buddy. We're only like halfway there, so whoa, we're halfway there. So bear with me. Hopefully you're learning something. Cheers. Next thing I want to get into is trapping, okay? Tracking and trapping. Tracking a target, okay? This is like a complex engagement now because not everything's like Call of Duty, guys. Tracking a target is where I follow them and try to adjust the timing of my shot for when I want, leading them slightly. I'll go over the math here in a little bit on how to actually lead them, okay? But all you need to understand is tracking is following them along. Trapping, pretend a target is moving. I'm holding my reticle right here. A target is moving. I'm waiting for them to get into my kill box to break that shot. So tracking, aiming dead center, bang. That's trapping. You need to understand tracking and trapping, and you need to choose which one you're going to utilize. I like to use tracking. I follow along, boom, break the shot when I want. Spotting calls. Let's go into wind math. Write this down. You're going to need to write this down. Distance times velocity divided by 7 equals your wind, hold, and MOA. I say again, distance times velocity divided by 7 equals your wind, hold, and MOA. Distance times 7 equals your hold in inches. I say again, distance times 7 equals your hold for a mover in inches, okay? So 200 meters times 7. If they're at 200 meters and moving, I'll take 2 times 7. That will give me a 14-inch lead, and I will lead them 14 inches for a point of aim or for a heart hit. Make sense? For your common math, all you will do is write this exact triangle on your sheet of paper. I am a dumbass, okay? I am a and D on the side. So make this. So you simply will take inches divided by, you'll take inches divided by MOA to get your distance, or you'll take inches divided by distance to get your MOA, and you'll use your adjustment value, okay? This is how you determine your MOA adjustments or your hold or your wind holds at different ranges. Now I'm going to give you an example. I told you. Here, I'll hold this up so you guys can kind of get an idea for a second. There you go. You can kind of screenshot some of these or do what you need to do. I'm going to read one of them out, and we're going to work on it here together so you know how to actually shoot somebody in Minecraft. You are engaging a target moving from left to right at 300 meters. You have a 6 mile per hour wind from the 9 o'clock. What would your lead be? I say again, you are engaging a target moving from left to right at 300 meters. You have a 6 mile per hour wind from the 9 o'clock. What would your lead be? Okay, so all you're going to do, first of all, your wind value is a 9 o'clock full value wind, because 9 o'clock is coming from the left. It is a full value wind. I'll show you kind of a chart here so you guys can wrap your minds around that. Boom. Okay, so because it's coming from the 9, there's going to be a full value. So a 10, a 9, or an 8 would be a full value wind, okay? Same thing on this side, right? 2, 3, 2, 3, and 4 would also be a full value. 12 and 6 are no value winds, and 1, 5, 7, and 11 are half value winds, okay? Give you guys a second to look at that for a sec. There you go. So why is that important? Okay, well, let's do the math here. So you're engaging a target, moving from left to right at 300 meters. You have a 6 mile per hour wind from the 9 o'clock. What would your lead be? So we know we have a full value wind, so we're going to take 3 times 6, which we're going to get divided by 7, which is going to give us 3 MOA. 3 MOA times 3 is going to give us a 9-inch wind hold in inches. Then our base lead would be 3 times 7, which gives us 21 inches. 21 minus 9 gives us 12 inches. We're going to hold 12 inches to the right because with, subtract, against, add. It would take me another 15 minutes to fully explain this. You guys will have to just work the math, go to ChatGPT, do something, and work the math. But just understand these equations. Distance, distance times velocity divided by 7 equals your wind hold in minute of angle. Distance times 7 equals your hold in inches. We suck at aiming. With, subtract, against, add. With, subtract, against, add. Okay? And then your common is this triangle. If they're side to side, you multiply. If it's above to below, you divide, and it will give you the other value. And then you have your adjustment value. Okay? Why is this important? Trench, I'm just in the infantry. Why is this important for me to be able to shoot people? This is how you will get your hold, your perfect hold for a target that you absolutely cannot miss, right? So it will give you a perfect hold in wind, in MOA, a wind hold in MOA or inches, or a base lead in inches and what direction you need to hold. General rule of thumb, if the target is moving from right to left and it's just a regular mover, I'm going to hold the direction. I'm going to lead them a quarter form in the direction they're moving. Does that make sense? So if I'm moving from this way to this way, I'm going to hold a quarter form and it's going to impact dead center as the target is moving. If the target is stationary, but the winds are blowing from left to right, I'm going to hold left because the round is going to needs to drift into the target, okay? You have to understand wind. You have to understand math for wind. You have to understand holds, and you have to understand your adjustment values. You also have to understand spotting calls. The way we communicate, if I'm on glass and I'm spotting for you and I see your impact, okay? So I'm either on glass, or on glass, on my weapon, on my spotting scope, or my binos, and you shoot the guy, but you miss. I need to spot what's called your splash. Okay, there's two methods of doing it. I can spot your trace by being directly behind you, in line with the bore at the same elevation of the bore and spot your trace, or I can be next to you and spot your splash. That's just where the bullet hits. The way we communicate is quarter form left, quarter form right, half form right, half form left, full form right, full form left, one form high, one form low, quarter form low, quarter form high, half form low, half form high. That is how we communicate to the shooter as a spotter. So again, I can either spot their trace by being behind them, same elevation, and watch their trace. That's just where the bullet moves air on the way to the intended target and give them a call or an adjustment and spotting call for that. Or I can be next to them and give them, like I just said, hold quarter form right, hold quarter form left, or you can tell them where their impact. You impacted a quarter form right, you need to hold a quarter form left. Whatever way you and your shooter talk to each other, you just have to be on the same sheet of music. This is how you're actually going to talk to each other. Also, when you're on glass, you give the command on glass. The shooter will be shooter ready, fire. Okay, shooter fires or send it. Shooter ready, send it. You're on glass, shooter ready, send it, boom, quarter form left. You need to hold a quarter form right, re-engage. Fire, boom, okay? That is how you're going to actually communicate with each other. If you're lost, well, study this video, get your dope book, and make sure you're get your stuff right, okay? Next, we're going to talk about dope and data book, okay? So for this day, I'm going to show it to you, but I'm going to read it out to you and then show it to you. You should have what's called a dope book or data book. This is what it looks like. Okay, center of visible mass, all your different shapes, your reticle that you're using, the distance that you're going to actually use, the size of a common man. Okay, so we have 20 by 40 on this, but we really know it's 19 by 30 for most engagements, but this one has 20 by 40, and you're simply going to draw out your impacts and shot groups when you're achieving data or dope, data on previous engagement. That's dope when you're getting data off of your gun. Now, why is this important? Well, I'll read this and then I'll show it to you so you understand what data I got from my gun. I was engaging at 500 meters. I was using a rifle combat optic reticle. My point of aim was a quarter form high from the 500 meter stadium line. I told myself need to hold dead center, okay? Aimed at card slightly left or held slightly left a quarter frame. And I drew a different shape and I actually drew out what happened for every single shot group, and I gave myself my final data solution for a 500 meter engagement with my reticle, and I drew out exactly everything that happened during this engagement for me to actually know how to engage the target. I'll show you a different example. You need to get data from your gun, and data will change on day to day based on atmospheric conditions, drag, and wind. Okay? Here's another one. I'll read it out to you first. Okay, I was engaging with a rifle combat optic and a 14.5-inch gun with M855 Alpha 1 at 400 meters. My point of aim was the line below center. Okay, so I was using the 400 meter of aim with the line a little bit below center. I told myself I need to hold a quarter form left at 400 to achieve post slightly left at this target. Okay, and there's the data that I got on the target, drawing the shapes of each shot group on the target and drawing, even sketching out what I need to do. That way I understand exactly what is going on that day with this gun with my data book. Again, data on previous engagement, or just if your brain works, you're just literally drawing with different shapes on the target of where you aimed and giving yourself data from the book. Make sense? All right. Let's move on to drills that you need to practice. Drills that you should practice there's several. Mozambique, armor defeat, accelerator, and Lpres. Okay, so Lpres, shooter ready, optic below chin, stand by, 2 rounds, 2 rounds, 2 rounds, all in the chest, knowing your height over bore. Okay, so Lpres, optic below chin, shooter ready, up, chest, 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 chest. That is Lpres, understanding the 2-inch height over bore. Okay, height over bore means if I'm aiming, if you're aiming at me at 5 meters, your bullets are going to impact down here. If you're aiming up here, your bullets are actually going to impact down here based on your height over bore. So understanding your holds, Lpres, chest, 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 right? We're aiming slightly higher than chest to actually hit the chest, aiming right around here to actually hit here. That is your height over bore. That is the Lpres drill. The next drill is called an accelerator. 5, 7, 10, 2 chests to the head, or 2 chests, 2 chests, 2 chests. It's the accelerator drill, okay? So typically we'll go from 5, 7, and 10, 3 separate targets, chest, 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 head, head, head. Makes sense? 2 to the chest, 2 to the chest, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 1 to the head, 1 to the head. That is going to teach you your height over bore at 5, 7, and 10. You can also do 5, 10, and 12, however distance you want to learn your height over bore, but that is the accelerator drill. Armor defeat, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 1 to the left hip, 1 to the right hip. Okay, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 1 to the left hip, 1 to the right hip on 3 different guys. Okay, 3 different targets. So shooter ready, optic below chin, stand by, up, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 1 to the left hip, 1 to the right hip, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 1 to the left hip, 1 to the right hip, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, 1 to the left hip, 1 to the right hip, and reassess through my sights. That is the armor defeat drill. Purpose of that, obviously, you're going to blow out the femoral artery in both hips, as well as 2 to the switch here, and 1 to the switch here. Okay. And then Mozambique is 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. Now is as good a time of any to talk about timers and switches. Circulatory and switches, pumps. Okay, all you need to know, the spine, okay, is a switch. If I hit anywhere in the spine, from that point down is going to turn off the body. So if you hit me right here in the spine, from that point down is going to turn off my legs, and everything below here, I am paralyzed. So if I put 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, and you hit 1 in the spine here, that could turn off my arms, right? Wherever they're connected. Does that make sense? That is a switch, instant incapacitation. You're turning off the light switch, okay? That is an automatic incapacitation. So 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. If I get at least 1 of these 2, or this one in that eye box, in that brain, that is an automatic, in this triangle, an incapacitation in Minecraft, a switch. Now there's timers. Timers will be heart, lungs, things that will take slightly longer for bleeding out, right? Keep in mind the 2 types of tissue, we have rigid and elastic, right? So a timer, if I hit you in the femoral artery or in a major vessel or an organ that's going to bleed out, that is a timer. You're going to be dead eventually, but you still have the ability to kill me before you're dead, okay? So understanding timers and switches, obviously we want to hit them in the spine or in that eye box, okay, for an instant switch or incapacitation, rather than getting that circulatory or timer shot that's going to let them have a last chance to take you out in Minecraft. Make sense? So switches, timers, okay? Arteries, you guys get it. Organs, okay? Elastic tissue and rigid tissue. There's temporary cavities and permanent cavities. This is a long video. Okay, let's continue. Timers and switches, we talked about it, and engagement areas. How many magazines do you need? You need 7 rifle, 3 pistol, minimum. 5 rifle on your body, 3 pistol on your body. You can have 2 in the assault pack for the rifle, but 1, 2, 3 up front with 1 in the cummerbund and 3 pistol on your belt, minimum, okay? 5 rifle, 2 pistol with 2 rifle, 5 rifle, 3 pistol with 2 rifle in the bag, okay? So I recommend, that's what I recommend. 20-inch barrels. Having more velocity, having a longer barrel does not make you an expert shooter, okay? I see it all the time on the internet. A lot of guys think that, oh, well, just because I have a longer barrel, I'm now a better shooter because I have more velocity. No, the shooter matching with the equipment makes you a better shooter. The Indian and the arrow have to match. So just because you have an M16A4 with an RCO does not make you a better shooter because you have more velocity. I see a lot in the memes and in the comments, oh, 20-inch gang, I understand the memes, turning practice ammo into duty ammo, I get it, right? But the problem is these guys, they go out and they buy a 20-inch gun, they don't know how to use it. So simply having a 20-inch gun does not make you a better marksman, an expert overnight. Okay, so no, you do not need a 20-inch barrel. The barrel selection that I recommend is 11.5 suppressed or 14.5-inch barrel unsuppressed, cold hammer forged, and you need to match your barrel up to the projectile you use. So if I'm using a 14.5-inch barrel, a projectile like an M855 Alpha 1 would be ideal. If I'm using a 11.5-inch barrel, a projectile like a 77 grain open tip match or OTM will be ideal. Heavier weight per caliber with the 77 OTM due to the less velocity will give me a better bullet for that shorter barrel in an 11.5. A 14.5, I need a little bit more velocity, and I can use an M855 Alpha 1, which is going to have a copper jacket, a solid slug, and a penetrator that will give me excellent performance out to 415 meters, point of aim, desired impact with that 415 meters, I will have 1,750 feet per second of velocity left with a 14.5-inch barrel with an M855 Alpha 1. So that is really good performance. Whereas with an M855 at 185 meters out of a 14.5-inch barrel, shooting an M855 at 185 meters, I will have 2,250 feet per second left, but it will take 6 inches of flesh to properly work for the M855. So these are things that you need to consider. Let's move on. Fighting in your sling. You should always have the weapon slung. The rifle should always be slung to your body. You should always fight in your sling. The reason being is if you get shot, you get blown up, you fall down a mountain, you want to retain the weapon to you. Because if you wake up or you find yourself without your rifle because you didn't have it slung, then you're going to be in a bad spot. Additionally, how can you transition to your secondary weapon if you don't have the rifle slung? You will always fight in your rifle. Always. Always fight in you always fight in your sling. Always. Mirage and reading wind. Write this down. You're going to need to write this down. I'm going to explain to you reading wind. To read wind, 0 to 3 miles per hour, wind is barely felt on your face, okay? 0 to 3 miles per hour is barely felt. 3 to 5 miles per hour is felt lightly on your face. I say again, 3 to 5 miles per hour is felt lightly on your face. 5 to 8 miles per hour keeps leaves in constant motion. 5 to 8 mile per hour wind keeps leaves in constant motion. 8 to 12 mile per hour winds raises dust and loose paper. I say again, 8 to 12 mile per hour winds raises dust and loose paper. 12 to 15 mile per hour winds causes small trees to sway. I say again, 12 to 15 mile per hour wind causes small trees to sway. You need to understand how to read wind to actually give a proper wind call using your MOA math. Is it all making sense now? All right. Gloves. You need to always utilize a non-firing hand glove. If you do not utilize a non-firing hand glove, you are in for a rude awakening. Rifles get hot. Crazy concept. So you need to always fight with a non-firing hand glove on. Trust me. Sometimes you will need to fight with a firing hand glove because the gun is so hot. Canted fire. Okay? Canted firing. If I'm going to shoot over the hood of a car or a Humvee and the magazine is to my right, I need to hold high magazine side. So if my gun is like this, that means the magazine is down here. I'm going to hold high magazine side. You cannot just aim dead center and get a center of visible mass hit, point of aim, point of impact hit. So whatever direction the weapon is canted, whatever direction the magazine is, you're going to hold high magazine side. So magazine side, high. That is how you're going to get a desired point of aim, point of impact. Imagine that trace coming out of that gun. That is how it's going to impact. The same with that canted firing. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know. If you made it to 46 minutes, leave a combat llama emoji down below and just let me know if you appreciate this content or not, okay? Yeah, just leave something down below if you got this far. Okay, ability to reach the pistol to get back in the fight. The reason why we fight in our sling is you need to always be able, fighting, gun, bolt locks to rear or malfunction. Attempt to place on safe, master grip on pistol, meet dead center on your pectoral line, boom, and present. After the target is done, you will always reload that pistol, bring that rifle up and pistol up like this, a 90-degree compressed ready position. Use your peripheral to figure out what's wrong with the rifle. Weapon on safe, reholster, reload the rifle, and get it back in the fight. Or correct whatever malfunction is in there and get it back in the fight. You need to always have access to a pistol. Always have access to your secondary weapon. That is why we fight in our sling, okay? So fighting. Weapon either goes cold or malfunction, attempt to place on safe, go down. We're not going to sling it like a freaking SWAT, 1980s SWAT guy. We're going to bring that gun down, get that master grip on that pistol, bring your non-firing hand at the pectoral line for that meet and greet, bring it up, present to target, engage, destroy, do a reload with retention, okay? Bring that gun up, compress ready, use your peripheral vision to see what's going on, weapon on safe, reholster, old mag out, new mag in on the rifle, and that's how you're going to get that gun back into operation. You need to always have access to your secondary weapon and the ability to access it, okay, at all times. Barrel selection and barrel harmonics. We already went into what I recommend, 11.5 suppressed or 14.5 unsuppressed cold hammer forged with an asterisk of 16-inch being the longest for the vast majority of my audience, because a lot of you guys are going to find yourself having to carry this thing for long distances, and an 11.5 is capable of engaging out to 500 easily. Plenty of videos of guys that are just as knowledgeable or more knowledgeable than me doing it in 4K. I have tons of shooting on my channel. The past few videos, if you go back the past couple of videos, I have tons of videos of me shooting with an RCO out to 450 meters, out to 740 meters with a rifle combat optic. It is easy. If you know your holds and you know your wind call, it is easy. So I recommend, like I said, 11.5 or 14.5, you need to understand barrel harmonics. If I rest my barrel on something, it is going to have a point of impact shift. That means even if I'm aiming dead center or knowing my hold and aiming where I'm supposed to be aiming, if I rest my barrel on an artificial surface, you're going to have an impact in that point of impact shift due to you resting that barrel improperly on an object. Does that make sense? So why does this matter? So this brings us into free floated or non-free floated. If you can get a free floated handguard or barrel with a proper handguard like a BCM or Geisley, Daniel Defense, RIS 3, that is what I recommend. An 11.5 or 14.5 RIS 3 or BCM or Geisley rail, that is going to give you an excellent firing solution with a free floated. You don't need it. Just understand if you're non-free floated and you're pushing into that barrel onto, or handguard onto something, you're going to have a point of impact shift. Barrel life. It will be, with your firing schedule, roughly a 7,000 round barrel for the vast majority of you. Because a lot of you guys are going to be shooting trash, mag dumping, sometimes having fun with the boys. I get it, right? But that is going to, typically with most barrels that I see, these are FN cold hammer forged barrels. For barrels that I see, you're going to have roughly a 7,000 round barrel life, if that makes sense. So at around 7,000 rounds, for most of you, I recommend you start thinking about getting a new upper. I'm not saying that is going to be instantly at 7,000 bad. It's based on your firing schedule and how hot you get the gun. It also based on how it's treated and what type. If you have a nitride special, probably never going to see 7,000 rounds. If you have a cold hammer forged barrel, you could get up to 14,000 rounds, but the vast majority of you are going to see around 7,000 to 9,000 rounds. That barrel is going to start to die. So I recommend you get a new upper, roughly, or a new barrel at least, at around 7,000 rounds. Again, depends on how many rounds in a sitting, all that stuff, how hot you get the gun, all the things. Bolt carrier group. For your bolt carrier group life, same thing. 7,000 rounds, get a whole new bolt carrier group. These guns can go longer. However, when you're betting your life on something, I recommend you take care of it and keep up the expendable parts. Your bolt is an expendable part. Your firing pin is an expendable part. Your gas rings can get shot out. So at 7,000 rounds, I recommend you switch out your bolt carrier group. Ambi safeties. They're stupid. Don't do it. Trust me, not needed. Whatever side your dominant side is, that is how you should have your selector switch. You do not need an ambi safety. That's absolutely Instagram FUD lore. Don't do it. Ambi safeties suck. Pressure switches suck. Don't do it. The gun gets hot, it melts. The wires, they fray. Don't do it. The gun gets cold, they break. They break off. The connection points break. Pressure switches are trash. I don't recommend them due to heat, due to cold, due to reliability, inconsistency, due to negligent discharges. With them, I don't like it. You do what you want to do. I hate pressure switches. We already went over ballistics. Two last things, and I'll finally get you guys out of here. Natural point of aim. Your natural point of aim is where the gun naturally wants to point. Crazy concept. However, your gun target line and shooter gun angle is what you need to understand. Typically, this is most easily taught where my belt buckle is pointed at or where my shoulders are squared off to. So in the standing firing position, I will have a 45-degree shooter gun angle to the gun target line. That just means my belt buckle will be 45 degrees from the target I'm shooting at. It will be a 45-degree line. In the kneeling, squatted, or seated position, it will be a 30-degree gun target line or shooter gun angle. That simply means that in the kneeling, my shooter gun angle gets brought in a little bit to a 30-degree. And in the prone, it will be near zero shooter gun angle to the gun target line. What that means is the prone supported and prone unsupported firing positions with having that nearly zero shooter gun angle to the gun target line or natural point of aim is going to give you the most preferred firing solution for you. Simply put, the lower to the ground you can get with the most support you can get is better. Okay? Resting the magazine on the ground is authorized and encouraged. It helps with stability and ensure that you have that belt buckle as close to center behind that gun as possible for an ideal shooter gun angle to the gun target line or natural point of aim. Cook-off. Last thing I want to cover tonight is cook-off risk. If you shoot more than 300 to 350 rounds on average through an AR-15 and at a cyclic rate, okay? So if I shoot anywhere from, I would say, to be safe, north of 300 rounds, okay? Really, it's around 275, 250, depending on firing schedule. But if you shoot, we'll just say 300 rounds or more rapidly, you are at a high risk of cook-off. All that means is that the gun can go off due to that projectile cooking off in the chamber because the barrel and barrel extension, not star chamber, not a real thing, the barrel extension are too hot and there's too much heat and pressure on that round, thus causing it to cook off. Why do I tell you this? I see a lot of stupid stuff online, and I want to prevent you guys from ventilating your foot unnecessarily and unexpectedly through a cook-off because you're having fun at the range. So just be cognizant of your situation with the gun. If you're getting near that 250 round mark and higher, give the gun 10 to 15 minutes to cool off. Trust me, the more rounds you put in a condensed time, you can melt the barrel, ruin the rifling, or well, not really melt the barrel because the gas system will explode on an AR, but the more rounds you fire and you get close to that 300 round mark, you need to be careful of a cook-off. Some of these shooting schools, I notice they don't pay, not the one I'm at now, but some that I've seen, these guys aren't thinking about a cook-off and a potential situation for that. So just understand if you're putting a lot of rounds in a short period of time through your gun, hey, it could go off. That is a lot of talking for me. There's more that I could cover. If you want another video on this, let me know. Just understand, this is my training, my experience, and it could help some of you guys. So if this was helpful to you, share it with a buddy. Let me know down below like what you want to see next. Hit the like button, leave a comment llama, but let me know if this was helpful. Share it with a buddy, and that's a lot of talking. Have a good night, guys. Have a good week. And until next time, it's going to be Trench Grenade, your average rifle marksmanship enjoyer that your mom says to live at home, signing out. Cheers.